YouTube it is. All right. Do we want to start with the summer students as we have done the last couple of weeks? There's no David here. So I'll pick on Alex to go first this week.
Thanks, Stuart. Okay, so this week has been about as unproductive as I could reasonably get. I've been trying to get to the bottom of why the factory class isn't working. And I'm slowly but surely working my way through various error messages. Essentially, it looks like it's now most of the way there. It's just I need to make sure that some of the validations on the time series base class, they're conflicting a little bit with some of the input data. But yeah, it's annoying because it's just the nitty-gritty of trying to get this darn thing working before I can actually start making anything that looks good. But yeah, we've figured out a lot of the bugs that were causing issues originally. I mean, it was always sort of silly little things like one error where it was validating the input data and checking it was 2D, which obviously is relevant for the maps, but not relevant for the time series. But to be honest, other than that, there hasn't been a whole heck of a lot of movement on the project, annoyingly. I'm afraid I had more computer trouble. Fortunately, the SSD, my spare SSD, which so my original SSD broke, and then my spare SSD also, which I thought was a bit dodgy, that also broke. So that didn't help my work process. And Stuart can confirm that I've been shouting at GitHub for quite a bit because obviously I had to reset up the entire lot. My entire system went and all of my saves, so I had to go from GitHub straight away, and it's slowed me down a bit. I don't know whether there are any questions. I'm afraid, yeah, it's obviously not a great week to report on questions and what's going on, or anything I've said. Then just ask.
It's the wonder with code. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
It's the herding kittens effect, or herding cats effect. It's like, I'm getting closer every time. I'm pretty sure I'm getting closer, but until it actually...
3 of them are behind you.
Yeah.
Okay. Tessa? You know, yeah. I cannot hear anything.
Yeah, I can't either.
Okay, can you hear me?
There we go.
Yeah.
Oh, hi everyone, I'm Tessa. I am working through listener for the project as well with implementing some AIA response functions. Essentially, at this point, I've started a class structure that I just pushed a pull request to kind of show that, and I've made I'm importing files from .genx output of IDL so that I can just get properties of the AIA. Essentially, that's what I've implemented so far, but I'm still working on the actual response function this week and trying to get an effective area function. So the goal of the project essentially though is to have 2 of these response functions to infer plasma properties. So I'll be eventually implementing a lot of SunPy, which I've researched a bit, and trying to implement more of the Scianti database. But for now, I'm just getting to reading in the AI properties, and um, I'm working with units now, as suggested by my mentors. So that's being implemented into the response, and that's kind of where I'm at with that. I don't know, this is my first time, so should I say something more, or how was that?
No, that's cool. It's good.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much of ChiantiPy is going to have to be recoded?
Ideally, none of it. I mean, I think where the plan is to sort of add to ChiantiPy as needed, and I think and to sort of improve, the parts of the code that we need, and also to improve the documentation. I know I've submitted a couple pull requests to the main repository, and Ken Deere seems he seems to want people to give more input, and seems to be merging those pull requests pretty fast. But I think the main part of ChiantiPy that we're going to need is the contribution functions, and so that might need a little bit of work in order to pull those in in a reasonable amount of time, and without having to sort of do some of the GUI selection that you have to do right now. But yeah, I mean, there is some work that needs to be done on ChiantiPy in addition to just putting these response functions into SunPy.
Okay, but no, I mean, because we've talked in the past about basically re-implementing ChiantiPy, so but nothing so drastic.
Yeah, I've been doing a little bit of work trying to sort of starting to make ChiantiPy look a lot more like SunPy. So like right now it now uses AstroPy helpers to for things like the package setup and the Sphinx build and stuff like that. So the documentation and things like documentation are starting to look a lot nicer. But I mean, as far as a full re-implementation, I don't know if it, because right, I mean, it has all the pieces that you need there, but it's a package that's 7 years old that's been developed by just one person, so it just sort of needs some help, I think. So yeah, it would be good, I think, if it just needs more people using it, right? And then it becomes more obvious where the fixes need to be made. But I think now that it's on GitHub, it should make. I mean that should be a lot easier than when it was just on SourceForge.
Yeah, this is Stephen here. Yeah, I worked with Ken to get him onto GitHub and sort of provided some of the initial push.
Okay.
I'm actually quite happy with what you were able to accomplish. It looks like things have moved forward significantly from where he was originally.
Yeah.
He was. I think there was some. I noticed some reluctance for him to move away from some of the SourceForge type sort of processes, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it took him a little. I think it took him a little to get used to, but I think you guys moved him quite far. One thing I noticed that he hasn't done, which I tried to get him, which is he hasn't been tagging releases.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
You should definitely do that at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
a pretty good thoughts on when to release. But right now there are none.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm pretty new to this project also, and what it would be nice to see is like an implementation of things like AstroPy units, AstroPy tables, etc., and then maybe make that like the next release, But I don't know. I don't even have an idea of what a reasonable timeline for something like that would be. And like you said, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to come in and just say, these are all the things that I think should be in this package, right? Because it's sort of his project to a certain extent, and I don't. So
Yeah, yeah, I understand that. So I think that's a really good question, Jack, and I do think it is a bit of a black hole. Like Pi does need, as a package, need some help and some work, and you could easily get lost in that.
Yes.
It looks like you're already you've already kind of pushed it to where it's getting acceptable. So I guess I would just provide feedback that don't get lost in that black hole and look at but the other thing, not only on the side of the packaging and the structure, there's work there, but there's also sort of some surprising holes in the functionality of Pi compared to the IDL version. So I don't know. That's a functionality issue, and I hope you guys don't run into too much of that. But I've been disappointed in some things that were not in Pi, but are in the IDL.
Yeah, I think at least for the GSOC project, it's going to be mostly, for the purposes of doing this in a reasonable amount of time, I think it's mostly going to be working with just the and as far as I can tell, the function to calculate the contribution functions, it gives you an output, right? It gives you what we want. It's just a matter of doing that without having to pull up these sort of silly GUI dialogues and selecting the lines manually. So yeah, I don't want to make the project, the Summer of Code project, into just a Pi maintenance project at this point. But I agree, it does need a lot of help.
Yeah, but I'm quite glad to see that Ken seems to be moving along. He's accepted a lot of your stuff, so that's great. I think this is a learning experience for him too.
I will look into setting up Conda package builds of Pi.
Okay.
Next time I get a chance, because if we're going to be including it as a dependency, we're going to need that, and I can set that up and build in.
That's great.
Pin Ken about it.
So one final question: how much have you guys been actually talking with Ken? Is it basically just at this level, let's try to fix up and provide some help with Pi, or is he sort of part of the mentoring process? Is he been meetings?
He's not a mentor on our project. The only contact I've had with him is via the mailing list, and then also just issues and pull requests on GitHub. And those seem to have gone over pretty well. There's an open issue right now where I think he is having some problems with some of the restructuring that I did. And I don't know why, if that was a problem, I don't know why the pull request got merged in the first place, but that's not, whatever. But yeah, that's sort of the only, and maybe we need to have more of this type of meeting with him, and just to see where he wants to go with the project.
Okay. Well, if you guys need to talk to him directly, I've spoken to him on the phone, and I can help that process if needed.
Okay.
Are there any CI or build tests going on that repo yet?
No, there are not.
No tests, right?
Yeah, there are no tests. That's correct. Yeah, I think it would be nice to just even have something on Travis that just does setup.py install, just to make sure after every push, right, that it builds.
And read docs builds too. You want that?
Yeah. So I set up a read the docs build. It is failing right now, but there's a pull request that fixes that, but it has not been merged yet. But it should, with the most recent pull request, it should pass now. But yeah, there is a build of that.
I will add to my to-do list to graft in some CI helper stuff to Pi and a pull request as well. That shouldn't be that difficult. Should be able to yank most of that out of SunPy without too much trouble.
Okay. Yeah, I sort of the past week I've sort of not been working as much on it because he hasn't merged or responded to any of the issues, the last couple that I've raised. So I don't want to, like, you know, not overwhelm, but yeah, just see how he responds to those things first, and then go from there. So
Sure.
yeah,
I can't see me getting around to it for a little while, so.
yeah.
So I have another question about QNTPy. Does it have any other users apart from the solar physics community?
I noticed actually there is another Google. There's another Summer of Code project called TARDIS that is a sort of supernova, like synthetic spectra, and they are using QNTPy for something, which really surprised me. But I haven't heard anything from them, or they haven't, like, contributed. I just saw that they were using it.
Yeah, this Wolfgang's project. I met him a couple of years ago. So
Yeah.
it might be worth me dropping him a line at some point and saying that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Again,
Yeah, the county
trying to graft a community onto QNTPy is interesting because you don't want to, like, trample over Ken too much.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah, they hold a pretty tight rein on County, because County is actually not only the. It's kind of weird how they structure their organization, but it's not only the code; it's also the database.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And they maintain both of them together, and so they want, if the database gets updated with new measurements and things, new lines, whatever, then they need to update the code at the same time. So releases of the database go hand in hand with releases of the code, usually.
Right. Yeah.
how does QNTPy handle the Chianti database then? Does it download it from somewhere or something?
You just download the tarball, and then set an environment variable, and then it knows. Like, you basically just point it at some big directory structure.
Yeah, I would suggest that should be changed as well, similar to what we do with SunPy downloading sample data or something. It should just know how to.
That begins to turn from an AIA response project
Yes.
into a Chianti
Sorry, yeah.
project.
What did I say? Don't get lost in this
Yes.
black hole.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's
my first advice.
yeah. There's the more you look into it, the more things you find to do. So
It's to some extent a packaging problem, right?
Yeah.
I would want a conda package that includes both, or two conda packages, one which is the database and one which is the Python code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would recommend that when you come up with those, at the very least, if you identify something like this, like the download thing, at least capture it in an issue.
yeah.
Don't necessarily implement the solution, but it would be helpful, and I think for Ken as well, to know, like, oh, these are things that people are thinking about and would want.
Yeah.
And I think that would soften him up a bit more,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I just don't want it to come off as, here's all the things that are wrong with this thing that you
That's
wrote.
right.
Yeah. So.
That is unfortunately what issue lists do. Nobody ever opens an issue going, dude, this is awesome.
No, you could be asking for new functionality, right?
Yeah.
Hey, here, I know you've been working really hard on X. Do more. Why have you not done what I want yet? God.
Yeah.
That's the power of the list, right? It gives you more power because you can choose to ignore people in a more targeted manner.
This is what the won't fix label is for.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Unzerblog? I'm probably butchering the pronunciation of this name, but you're up. Oh, it's quiet. Hello? Yeah. Go on, off you go. tell us
Yeah,
how to
so
pronounce your name first, and maybe I'll do a better job next time.
it's in short, you can call me Punya,
Okay, cool.
Punya. So there's that. So this is so this week's update. Nothing because I did nothing, and from the beginning. So since this is my first meet, I'll say what I did from the beginning. I implemented the VSO query caching thing, which e- when before the application period, when I was using SunPy, what irritated me was you can't. Uh, I mean, the queries were only the queries were stored and they were matched exactly. So you can't uh, use the same downloaded files in the database to make a query which is a subset of another query made earlier. So that was the problem. It was re-downloading files again and again. So I did that so that it will not happen in the future if it gets merged. And then I made a, a tutorial for the examples page, a tutorial for the database module, which I made it pretty long. I think you'll have to modularize it, split it into small parts. After that, I implemented adding FIDO entries to the database, which works to some extent, doesn't work for JSON files. Uh, Now I'm working to fix the copy button, which has nothing to do with the proposal or anything, but it irritates me, and I think it irritates a lot of people because that doesn't work and I can't figure out how to get it to work. But I'm doing that so that everyone is happy at the end. So that there's that. So that's what I've done so far.
Cool. Thank you. It's good. The fact of the VSO caching thing is awesome. People should review that pull request, by the way. It's still sitting there. I can't remember what the number is off the top of my head. $17.85. People want to have a look at that. That would be good. Okay. Got anything else? Summer project related?
I have a question, yes, about going back to the AA response thing. Would this be something we would consider having in the map class? So the default map class could provide the ability to go from data to some physical quantity, which is what response essentially does. So I just wanted to. I know this is a deeper discussion, but it could be, it's not necessarily something that's instrument related, but don't need the instrument class, as we've discussed. We probably won't be doing instrument classes, but a general map class could consider having that coming along for the ride once you open a file. Has anybody thought about that, or?
I think we should definitely.
We weren't necessarily committed to any like certain place in the code. We were just sort of, we'll just stick it in the instrument sort of submodule for now. But I mean, if it seems like it belongs more, yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I just the only reason I bring it up, I think I agree that it's not really part of the summer project. I think it's beyond the scope of the summer project probably, but I think it would be helpful as you guys are developing to think about that. You know, would it make sense for something like this to go into some of the more core objects, or just to keep it in mind, I think.
We should definitely make sure that map handles the output of these functions correctly. So that's something we haven't really done before. We've not really ever poked map to see how well it handles different representing different things with images. Right? There's no real logic around what the unit flag is on the map and what that means from a more physical perspective. It's something we've never used before.
Yeah.
So
Well, we
that's
already
the first step.
We already have this issue with magnetograms and intensity, right? They're physically quite different.
Yeah. Dealing with that issue of how to make map more aware of what its image actually represents from a physical perspective is the first stage of doing any of this stuff. Irrespective of where we end up later along with functionality in map classes or in functions, which is a different discussion we should not have now. But like at the moment we have minimal like unit / observational awareness in map.
It's not really content aware, right? And the main difference, actually, this AAA response is looking into sort of striking out new ground, except for what you're talking about, Jack, which is taking observational units and going into physical units, right? Which kind of brings you from, I don't know, level 2 to level 3 or something like that. We sort of had that in MDI.
Yep.
But this is another. Now we're adding a new capability. We'll have a new map around called a temperature map, and a mission measure map, and so that'll add to this issue that we haven't really thought about so far.
Yeah, we've been concentrating on the just the data source as opposed to the type of data, right?
Yeah. Derived data or derived measurements, or I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's for later. But it's coming.
It's worth me mentioning that's obviously similarly later something that I might be needing to think about with the light curve refactor, or the time series now as it may be, because there are different types of time series. Some of them are not light curves quite specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think certainly as a first pass, I think coming up with some standard for the unit attribute of map is a good way to describe what is actually held in the data. Right? That's the most important piece of physical information, is what the units is in. So if the units is in count or something more similar, then you know that it's not. Whereas if it's actually scaled to a physical variable, then it should have meaningful SI units attached to it. So that's the very first thing that needs sorting out. And then there are other things we can build around that if that's not enough information to correctly describe what it's actually holding. Okay. I have released SunPy 0.7.1 and 0.7.2 this week, approximately 24 hours apart from each other. Having forgotten to merge out its pull
VR, right? Release after release.
Having forgotten to merge Albert's pull request and cocked up PGP signing the release on PyPy for 0.7.1, I decided to just scrap it and start again and do 0.7.2. So SunPy 0.7.2 is out. I'm going to release SunPy 0.6.5, and then post to the mailing list and Twitter about both the releases at the same time.
This is going to be the last European SunPys.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do while watching the results of the EU referendum around 5 a.m. on Friday. While simultaneously crying into my palms and drinking gin at 5 in the morning. I don't know. Okay. Pull requests. What we got?
Stuart, can I quickly interject?
Go on then.
It worked!
Hey.
I've got Eve data now in a proper time series. And in case anybody wants to know what was really causing me headaches today, apparently it's because the file is read and outputs the meta then the data as a tuple, not the data then the meta as a tuple. And that has caused me over an hour of trying to figure out.
Okay, good times.
Anyway,
Good
right.
times.
Done.
Live debugging. What's that? What pull requests have we got there actually? Oh, I need to merge that. Jack, do you want to talk about your XRT nickname pull request?
Sure. So the idea behind the nickname is that it's the commonly used and conversation name of a particular instrument, detector, spacecraft combination. So it should be, normally in conversation, you want to talk about observations from a particular thing, then there's normally just one simple phrase or simple word or acronym that describes that. So XRT is the only XRT which is available, and it takes so when you say XRT, then it should be obvious to anyone what XRT is and what it's flying on. So that's the concept that we had in HelioViewer. That's been brought over to SunPy. And so my pull request change is to simplify, is to use the nicknames explicitly in the plot titles of XRT and all other plots generated, like map.plot. Or map.peak will use the specified nickname. So that means that all the plots will change. So I haven't uploaded new hashes for the plots. So things like, instead of having SDO space AIA 193, that will just change to AIA 193, which is, conveys this slightly less information, but it's just as, it's specific, because there is only one AIA, and we know it's on SDO.
So Jack, I'm particularly invested with that because I think I coded that up. My main concern about this, so I agree with you that we never really talked about the nickname, and it should be kind of more formalized what it means, and I like your definition for what it is. What I am a little concerned about is that you're hand coding it. So if you notice, what I had before is it would actually reach into the FITS file and figure it out. So I just want to raise that concern. I mean, hand coding it is maybe fine. A lot of other things get hand coded, but I just want to make sure that we are okay with that. Like before, basically, the FITS file was used to come up with the nickname, but here we are defining it in our code divorced of the FITS file itself.
Okay. You mean just in the, well, I could make it self.detector for XRT in particular.
Yeah, but self.detector reaches in and grabs detector, right? It grabs something in the fits file. I forget what.
So the nickname is the nickname is based on how humans actually refer to the instrument, right? It's not.
Yeah. So self.detector just goes in and grabs detector from the metadata, which is presumably in the fits file header as a detector tag.
Yeah, I'm not sure that the nicknames are. I wouldn't know what the algorithm is to make it explicitly calculable from an arbitrary solar physics PITS file.
By default, in map-base, nickname defaults to the value of detector. Defaults to the fits keyword, detector, or blank.
Yeah, and in Hinode, I had added So Jack, one way you could have solved this, I think, is just removing the 1 and 2.
Yes.
Right, and then actually, if you just remove that line completely, you did not redefine nickname, it would have returned detector by default.
Indeed.
And it would return, I think, XRT.
Is that better?
I think so. So unless there's a need to change it in the source file, the default should be preserved.
Okay. I just wonder if that should be. Okay, I understand the arguments against hard coding, but I also, since the nickname is kind of slightly divorced from what is actually stored in the files, and explicit is better than implicit, then that would be the counter argument.
Well, okay. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with that, apart from the fact that by default nickname and detector are the same.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm not gonna. I'll change it.
If we want to not make nickname and detector be the same, then that is also fine. I have no problem with that. But
all right, I'll just delete that.
Change it in one place, but not in any other, right?
Okay.
The only other thing I had that I put on this issue, or this pull request, was the fact that at the moment we don't make use of any unit witchcraft when creating titles for the plots. It kind of irked me that for AIA images in particular, we print out angstroms as a whole word in the title, when AstroPy units will happily represent themselves as LaTeX and
Yeah, how do we fix
could
that?
be converting to SI instead.
So, so that would be what, 17.1 nanometers?
Yeah, you know, the international standard way of representing distance.
Yeah, but that would also confuse. I think that would.
You know me, right? I love to confuse people in the name of correctness.
Yeah, I don't think we should do that.
But at the very least, we should be using the angstrom LaTeX symbol in the plot.
I agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But at the moment, the plot title just defaults to name, which we probably don't want to change to include LaTeX by default, because then if you print it out as a string, it would look awful. So we need to think of a way of handling whether we just build that in the plot function manually or whether we have a LaTeX name attribute, maybe a hidden LaTeX name attribute. Anyway, just thinking if anybody fancies doing that. Or maybe I'll do it next time I make a plot and get angry.
How do you do that? Do you do like a string on the unit, something, or how do you get it to give you that representation?
I think quantity has an underscore reaper underscore LaTeX underscore method, which represents a quantity as a LaTeX string.
No, so I'm looking at the docs here, and they have flux unit. So they have a toString, and then you call LaTeX inline formats it as LaTeX.
Sorry, say that again.
I'll just post it.
Yeah, all that.
So I wonder if that's the fix.
Yeah, I mean that is the fix, but that is, yeah, it's just the decision about what to do with name, right? Because we don't want name to be LaTeX by default.
Jack, I just ran that command, and for angstrom, it just returns angstrom. It doesn't return any tech.
With
Does it put the umlaut over the A?
No.
the Python interpreter.
I'm in IPython. So that's not quite right. Anyway, I think we can mess around with that. Create an issue.
A quantity has no toString.
A unit does. If you do unit toString.
Oh, right, okay. Well, if you do quantity dot underscore reaper LaTeX, you get the whole quantity represented out as a. That's how IPython, Qt console, and Notebook do their automatic fancy formatting.
How do you do that? Say that again.
That totally didn't page properly because Google decided that Reaper LaTeX was supposed to be italic instead of having. It's in chat. Just prepend and append an underscore on Reaper LaTeX, so that it's not italic.
What is A?
A quantity object.
Oh, it's really? I don't see that.
It's supposed to be.
I don't get that.
Supposed to have a preceding and.
Just one. Nope. That still doesn't work for me. Oh, wait. All right. There it is. Okay. Took me a while to actually type it in right. Okay. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
So what is the problem that that matplotlib should solve, really?
Well, no, we're passing the string to the matplotlib to set the title. Our string does not contain any LaTeX or other formatting.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Matplotlib will happily render tech in its labels. Just need to get it. Okay. Any more for anybody?
Jack, did you just send out a style guide that was written on a typewriter?
Yes, I did. So this is the one. SunPy follows this style guide.
Is it really?
Yeah, and so energy in ergs and angstroms and barns and cubic centimeters are all meant to be deprecated,
Yeah,
except in solar physics.
Non-SI units. Stop using them.
Yeah. Nanometers forever.
I was going to say we know what happens when you get confused between units. America has had enough probes destroyed with that.
I am going to send a pull request with it converting down to SI before it puts it in the title, and then we can argue about it there.
You're just trolling, really.
Yeah, but it's the best kind of trolling because it's the lightest trolling that knows coming with when you're right.
Fight.
Anyway, thank you all very much.
All right. Thanks.
Nice seeing you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.